What's going on, my people? It's your boy FPL Kayman, and I'm back with a brand new video. And in today's video, we'll be covering the game week 13 chip strategy video. We're going to cover what are the best chips to use depending on what chips you have left to use. So whether it be free hit draft, whether it be wildcard draft, or a triple captaincy chip, we'll be discussing it all. So without further ado, let's dive in. So at first, we have the free hit 13 draft. As you guys can see, I am lining up with Martinez at the back with Cash as well as O'Reilly and Virgil. I know what a lot of you guys are thinking. Why do you have double up on Villa? They're quite inconsistent, especially to start the season. But they have turned around a bit, especially their home form. Based on last season, they were very good at home. They've kept a bunch of clean sheets as well as they were really beating top teams at home. With Wolves at home, I think it's a great fixture to target because Wolves have been one of the worst teams in the league. The fact that they're at home, and I think they've picked up some bit of form as well, I think this is a good fixture target, as well as double up on Villa defense does make sense. Although there is a low ceiling, you could argue that Cash doesn't have the DEFCON potential, but I would argue that he does have an attacking threat moving forward. So I do think he's a good pick. Maybe if you don't like Cash, you can definitely maybe consider going for a Brentford defense, who also have very good odds of keeping a clean sheet this week. So maybe go for a Collins instead, or maybe even Van der Beek or Coyote. But I think Cash is a very good pick. At the net, if you wanted to go for a different keeper, you can also do, for example, Kelleher as well. But I do like Martinez and Cash as a double up. And then you have O'Reilly with Leeds at home, great fixture, and he also got rested in the Champions League. He only came on in the second half for 45 minutes. So he got very good rest in the midweek game. So I think he could potentially start. But I would say if you're picking any City assets, make sure to tune in for the deadline stream to see if there is any leaks and potentially any players that may be leaked to start. So I think O'Reilly has a good chance of starting. But just to double check and confirm, do tune into my deadline stream to double check that if this asset is whether to pick this asset or not on free hit. So O'Reilly, I think, is a great pick. He's been, I think, the last 9 games in a row in the Premier League, and he's looked phenomenal. He's really good attacking as well. I think he's one of the best attackers in terms of fallback going forward. Like, the guy's like 6 foot tall, and he's got potential aerial threat as well as open play threat. So I think he could do really well, especially Leeds at home with great fixture on paper. And I think the alternative is, if you want to go for a City defender, is probably Guardiola, who is more nailed for minutes. I think some people would probably say even Nunes is somewhat nailed, but I think Stones could play at right back as well. So I probably prefer O'Reilly or Guardiola as a safe option if he was to go for a City defender, whether it be transferring or whether you're picking on free hit. And then you got Virgil as a bit of a controversial one. I know many people are not a fan of Virgil at the moment. Even myself, I've not brought him in on my team as a Gabriel replacement, as I don't trust the defense, and potentially West Ham even score. But the reason why I do have him is that I do think he does have a lot more routes to points than other defenders in the game at the moment. I don't like him as a transfer in, but on a free hit, I would take a punt on him. And listen, it's not popular, it's unpopular opinion, but I think West Ham are one of the worst defense in the league. And in terms of set pieces, they're quite poor as well. Although they hired Nunes, I think is that still there is a potential that they concede a set piece goal. So they picked up a couple of results recently, but I still think they're going to be vulnerable on set pieces. And Liverpool, they're going to find somewhere to score, and set piece has to be probably one of them right now because Salah is not really ticking along at the moment. Neither is Gakpo or Ekitike or Isak. They've not been doing very well. So potentially they score a set piece goal, and Virgil does have a set piece threat. You could argue Konate as well, but he did get hooked in the last game that they played. So I do like Virgil from the standpoint of providing a set piece threat as well as DEFCON, and maybe small chance of a clean sheet, to be honest with you. But if you don't like Virgil, I'm not saying you have to go for him. But if I was on free hit personally, I think I would have him. Just because of those many routes to points and the fixture I do like as well. Moving on to the midfielders, I do have Mohamed Salah, who's got West Ham away. Same thing as I said for Virgil. He's not been the greatest form of himself, but I think, again, that's another punt I would consider. One thing you guys will hear, I think this free hit, there's a lot of punt in this free hit. I never thought I'd be saying this, but Salah and Virgil seems like a punt at the moment based on the way they're performing. Because at this moment in time, these guys, when you're having them in your team, they're more of a liability than probably more of a assured thing to get a return from them. They've been really, really disappointing. Liverpool have been on absolute, probably relegation form at the moment, the way they're playing. They got dunked on by Forest. So listen, if I wasn't free hit, I think I'll still have Salah. Respectfully, I think I'll still have him because of the fact that at the end of the day, it is West Ham, and they did consider a bunch of chances to Bournemouth as well. But again, as I said, it's a bit of a punty move again as well. So again, who else would you go? What's the point of free hit if you're not going to have Salah? Let's be honest. I think I'm 100% of Salah. And then you got Foden. Again, another punt. I'll be honest. I think his minutes are good. He's got rested just like O'Reilly. But again, it's another punt because he's not been in the greatest form himself either. But again, Leeds at home with the rest that he's got, I think he could do well. And then you've got Sade and Rodgers. Rodgers is in a phenomenal form right now. I think he's returned in the last 2 weeks in a row. So He's got 2 goals, he's got a brace versus Leeds, and looks to be in a good form. And that is one player I'm kind of, scared if I was not free hit, that not owning, because a lot of people will have on free hit. Same with Shadi. I think Shadi is amazing, man. Honestly, like that Brentford attack, I thought they would really suffer without Wissa and Mbemo, but it seems like these guys are still ticking along and they're scoring goals for fun, especially at the GTEC Arena. And Burnley is a great fixture. I think in my actual team, if I didn't have Thiago, I think I would 100% free hit this week. But because I have Thiago, I have some sort of attacking cover in that Brentford team. So I'm somewhat a bit more reluctant to free hit, but which I will discuss in my team selection video, whether if I do go ahead with free hit or not. But in this scenario, I think I'll definitely probably double up on the Brentford attack, because at their home arena, they score a bunch of goals and Burnley is a great fixture. I don't particularly like it for clean sheets in terms of from Brentford defense, but I do like their attackers, whether it be Sade or Thiago or even Dango, to be honest. And Damsgaard is an outside shot as well. And it got moving into strikers, Haaland, Thiago, and Mateta. I know people will say, why do you have Mateta? Look, I think United, after watching the Everton performances, I think if Everton had 11 man, I think they score a lot more than 1 goal. I'll be honest, I think we look horrendous defensively. Midfield was rubbish, attack was rubbish. One of my main concerns or reason for not free hitting is the fact that I'm doubled up on Palace, and I think Palace could definitely do damage versus United, especially at home. I know people are going to say they play midweek, they're going to be tired legs, etc. But I still think, based on the performance that we put out, I think Palace are head and shoulders above us at the moment. And that is why I do have Mateta. I want to have some sort of cover. One could argue maybe it's a Sarr type of game. Maybe you downgrade Mateta to a striker like Krupi Jr. and then you go for a Sarr, and then you play the formation of 3-5-2. I don't mind that as well. But I think you want to have a Palace cover. Maybe one could argue even that go for a Munoz instead of Virgil to cover the Palace D as well as the attack, because he's basically a winger that has a clean sheet potential as well. But I do slightly back United to score. That is why I have Virgil over Munoz. But I wouldn't hate it. I think Munoz is a good shot as well over Virgil. So I think regardless of how you slice it, I think you should at least have one Palace attacker / defender within your free hit. And I chose to go with Mateta because I think he's trying to make a move, and when you score versus United, it is a big club. You're going to get noticed, so he's trying to leave in the summer. He's not re-signing his contract. I do think this is the game that he shows up. He maybe gets a goal or two, and normally he does score versus United. I think that's one of his favourite fixtures. So either it's Mateta or Sarr, whichever one you go for. I think you'll definitely have one on free hit. And on the bench, to be honest, I don't have much cover. It is quite thin. It is quite a bit of an expensive squad to own. So as you guys can see, I've got Dubravka, Michele, King, and a Chimpong. But yeah, I mean, if you wanted to make some funds, again, I would say probably downgrade Mateta and get Sarr in midfield. That's the way you release funds, or downgrade Virgil to a Munoz. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I think that would be the free hit 13 if I was to go on a free hit 13. I also want to show you guys the counterpart, where I'm obviously debating whether to free hit 16 as well. I want to show you guys a potential. Maybe if you are in that scenario where you're not too sure whether to free hit 13, your team looks quite good. You already have Palace, you already have maybe Thiago, and you already have double or triple City already, and you're not too sure about free hitting. I also have another route for you in potentially free hitting game week 16. So let's move on to the free hit draft for game week 16. So as you guys can see, for game week 16 on free hit, I'm going Kelleher, who does have Leeds at home. The reason why I'm going with him is because I am trying to go for a bit more premium in midfield. As you guys can see, I have a lot of premium midfielders as well as defenders as well. So I do have to squeeze as much funds as possible into my forward line, into my midfield as well as the back line. So Kelleher is a bit cheap option, but again, that's long time away. Maybe I won't go with Kelleher. Maybe I might go with Pope, who does have Sunderland away, or I might go with a different goalkeeper. Again, it's all depending on what's available at the time. So we're looking quite far ahead, but if I was to look, basically show you guys maybe draft how it may look like, this is how it is. So you have Kelleher at the back with Leeds at home with Timber, which I already own, of course, and then you got Anderson, Calafiori, and Cucurella. I would not be owning Anderson, Calafiori, Cucurella, to be honest, or I don't have plans to bring them in, but this is the players that I would be owning on my free hit. And then you got Saka, who I already own, of course, but I do not have Cole Palmer, who will have Everton at home. And then you got Mbemo, which I own, but then Sade I would not be owning. And then you've got Salah, who got Brighton at home, and he does have my captaincy armband. Of course, Saka is going to have it, a good shout to, of course, say maybe he also I might put it on him as well. But depending on the form of Liverpool, depending on how Salah looks, I'll potentially decide whether to go to Salah or Saka. But overall, the midfield is stacked with Salah, Palmer, and Saka. And then, of course, up front, you got Thiago only with Leeds at home. The biggest risk with this draft, of course, is you're taking on the machine, the absolute robot, the absolute killer this season, the man, the myth, the legend, the Earl of Norway, Haaland. And basically, you're doubling down, saying, you know what? I'm going to take the risk and take on you with captaincy as well as not on you. And that is the biggest edge I think can think of on the game. I think the biggest difference between this week free hit in game week 16 and, say, for example, game week 13 is the fact that you're going to have the Haaland and you're going to captain him. But with 16, you're not going to have him, as well as you're going to captain a different player, which is high risk, high reward. And if you're maybe, you know, that's that type of manager, and you have high risk tolerance, maybe that's for you. But if you don't like that, maybe this free hit 13 is the way to go, because if you're going to have Haaland in this draft, it's pretty much not worth free hitting 16, let's be honest. So I think it is potentially the week where you either absolutely fly or you go down the drain. So let me know what you guys think of this draft. I think both drafts has pros and cons. And I'm personally, I'll let you guys know in my team selection video where I'm leading to as. So yeah, let's now move on to game week 13 wildcard draft. So at first, as you guys can see, for the no Salah draft, we're starting with Pope at the net with Timber, as well as O'Reilly and Munoz. And I'm going with a double Arsenal DS. As you guys can see on the bench, I do have Calafuri as well as McKeely and Gui. In terms of the reason why I'm going double Arsenal D, I still think they're the best defense in the league. And objectively speaking, even without Gabriel, they do have a very good backup in Hincapi as well as Mascara. And I think they're still going to keep budget clean sheets. Of course, Chelsea away is a tough game, but followed up with the Brentford at home, as well as they also play Wolves in game week 16. And if you don't have a free hit and you're looking to save it, then definitely I think double Arsenal D I would go with, even a Walker 13. And I don't really see there's much other alternatives. Maybe you go for SNSE, but he's also on 4 yellow cards. So, and the fixture's also somewhat dry up after a couple of weeks. So I still like the double Arsenal D, even though this is not a perfect entry point. But I can definitely bench Calafuri, as you guys can see, and go with Timber, O'Reilly, and Munoz, who does have, to be honest, middling fixtures, not amazing fixtures, but Munoz versus United at home, he has a good clean sheet odds as well as good attacking threat, of course. One thing to note is that Munoz is also on 4 yellow cards, but if he does miss any games, you also have Calafuri as well as Mikel to come in. Moving on to the midfield, you do have Saka, Foden, Semenyo, and Bimo and Rogers. Saka, I would go with if I'm still, I know it's been quite disappointing, but if I'm going with no Salah, I don't know where else to put that money except for Saka. Cole Palmer is obviously just back from an injury, and the fixtures also somewhat drying up, so I don't want to go there. So even the Saka's fixtures in the next two, in terms of like attacking potential, not very high, but still I think he's one of those players that he can turn up in a big game and get something, and he's always going to provide you an alternative for a captaincy shot if you ever wanted to take it on Haaland, whether it be game week 14 or whether it be game week 16. He's always there as an alternative option. Foden is actually a bit of a punt during this busy December period. I think he's somewhat nailed, but I'm not 100% sure. But again, I think it's a punt that's worth to take in terms of the fixtures. It is really, really good with Leeds, Sunderland, and they also play, I believe, Fulham away as well. So there's good fixtures coming up. Semenyo, I still like. If he's fit and available, I still think he's got good fixtures coming up with Sunderland as well as Everton at home. And I think in terms of December period, there's not much places you can go and get an asset like this who's going to provide you with penalties, minutes, and a week in, week out with no midweek fixtures to play as well. And Bimo is another one similar to Semenyo with, of course, no pens, but great fixtures coming up after Palace. And then you've got Rodgers, who's got Wolves at home as well as Brighton and West Ham followed up with that. Moving on to the front line, I'm going with the two strikers, which is Haaland and Thiago. And Gui is the third striker, of course, on the bench, but he will not be playing. This formation is a bit more flexible. Some weeks, depending on fixtures, for example, we can play 4-4-2. Some we can play 3-5-2, depending on the fixtures, of course. For example, Thiago plays Arsenal next week. Calafuri will come in. Thiago will be on the bench. And then you're basically playing with one striker and you're playing 4-5-1. So this is why I say this structure is a bit more flexible. But again, on Wildcard, as I said, guys, I think really and truly want to get the structure as well as the assets that are a bit more nailed and good for minutes. I think when I look at this draft, there's two risks in my opinion, really and truly, is O'Reilly and Foden from City. You never know when they're going to get rotated. I think there is a small risk with Calafuri and Timber, but I think those are the first choice players in their team respectively, whether it be Timber or O'Reilly. I think they're both first choice at the moment. As we saw in the Champions League, they did get rested. With Timber, of course, I'm recording this before they play in the Champions League. I'm not sure if he did get rested versus Bayern or not, but I think he's going to be first choice. Let me know what you guys think of the no Salah wildcard draft. If you can't afford this, definitely downgrade maybe Pope. I think that's one place you can downgrade and go to a Petrovic if you wanted to, or Verbruggen, whichever you prefer. And then if you wanted to maybe say, you don't have enough money, maybe go Munoz to La Croix. That's another place you can sacrifice, I think, as he is on 4 yellow cards. But that's about it. Let me know what you guys think of this draft. Now let's move on to the Salah/Haaland wildcard draft. So as you guys can see with the Salah-Haaland draft, I am going with Petrovic at the back and covering that Bournemouth deal, which is highly owned, with Senesi being owned by so many managers. So I think he's got good fixtures also coming up with Sunderland and Everton. And then you got Timber still staying, going with one Arsenal defender in this, and you got O'Reilly and Thiago. As you guys can see, guys, with this draft, I'm trying to save as much money as I can. So that is why I can't afford the double Arsenal deal with this draft, because Salah, Haaland does cost a lot of money, as you guys know, combined over 29 million. So, and then, of course, Thiaw is to cover the Newcastle D. They got great fixtures coming up. O'Reilly is to cover the CED. Pretty self-explanatory, to be honest. And Richards is on the bench. You can definitely start him this week if you wanted to for ahead of Timber, because he's probably going to get Defcon versus United, and he's got a good odds for clean sheet as well. But I am giving an edge to Timber, of course. With Richards on the bench, he gives you a very good, in terms of depth, he gives you a very good option to come in whenever you need someone to come for a rainy day, as well as Mukiele and Gui, of course. I mean, Gui doesn't play, but Mukiele and Richards can come in anytime you've got any injuries. Moving to the midfield, you got, of course, the main man, Mohamed Salah, with Foden, Rodgers, and Mbeumo Minte. I think the midfield is quite really strong. You can play pretty much every week, these midfielders, and they've got pretty good fixtures coming up in the future as well. The draft is pretty much same as the last one. The only difference is you've got obviously no double Arsenal D, you've got no Munoz, except you've got Richards where you compromise, and you also have Salah instead of Saka. So the main difference really and truly is you're taking on Saka and double Arsenal D in this period for the next 3 to 4 weeks, which is not the end of the world. And then another difference is, I'd probably say, is the fact that you sacrifice on Munoz with Richards, but at least you're covering the Palace D there. And Minte is a bit of a differential you got in there. I know many people may not be able to afford this draft because my team value is quite good. So if you can't afford the Minte as a fifth midfielder, I do have one option, is Ilya Anderson, who does play for Forest. I did own him in this season early on. He didn't do very well for me, but he's one of the best Defcon midfielders in the game, and he's been doing quite well recently, to be honest. He's got 2 returns, and there might be small chances also on pen, so he has pretty good fixtures coming up as well. So maybe go for, instead of Minte, to Anderson if you want to afford this exact draft. Other places to sacrifice, maybe go for a second 4 million defender instead of Richards, maybe Goodmanson or Rodon or something like that. Other than that, I don't really see many places you can commit sacrifices, to be honest. I would definitely have Timber. I would definitely have O'Reilly and Petrovic and Thiaw. I mean, Petrovic could be Verbruggen, of course, but I don't make much savings there. But the backline, I think, will have to stay the same. Only place sacrifices Richards and Minte, probably. But the rest, I think, has to be as it is. And I think this is probably the best midfielders to go for. So let me know what you guys think of the Salah Haaland draft, as well as the non-Salah draft. Is it worth the sacrifice to take a punt on Salah for the next couple of weeks? I think I'll probably take it if I was on a wildcard this week, but it's really up to you and your risk appetite, and whether if you do think that Liverpool are going to turn around their form. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Now let's discuss on triple captaincy chip. I know this is a lot of people are going to say, okay, I have my chips saved up, I got my triple captaincy, I've got my free hit, I might even have my wildcard, which would be crazy if you have all these chips by now. So let's just assume you have one or the other. So for example, let's just say you have either free hit and TC left, or wildcard and TC left, right? Which one would you do? It really depends on your team, on what type of players you have. If you have players that are on good form and they're doing well, and they have decent fixtures this week, for example, with, I would say, City, I would say with even Pool and even Palace, I'd say you can probably go with the TC, because Haaland is a very good TC option this week. When you're looking at the fixture tick on the screen, guys, look, the next really good option is probably, I'd say, is game week 15 when he does play Sunderland at home, and then I'd say in 17 West Ham. So I think those are the 2 options that you can definitely consider. And of course in 19 you also have Sunderland as well. So I'd say either 15 Sunderland or 17, but my favorite would be 17. I do think West Ham is a much poorer defense than Sunderland, and I think if I was to not use my TC this week, I'll probably go for 17. If your team is really poor, as I said, do free hit or wildcard this week. But if it's looking good, definitely activate the TC on Haaland. And I wish you guys all the best. So let me know what you guys think of this chip strategy video. Make sure to smash the like button. Make sure to subscribe. As well, leave a comment down below. And I'm going to see you guys on the next one with my team section video. Peace out.